Seat podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm on my way home from a classic affair, a little local event that's done really well over the past few years. It's one of my favourite shows locally to take Peggy to, and I thought I'd tell you all about it today on the podcast. So Classic Affair is put on by a local classic car restoration garage, and they do some really great work locally, and then they put on this show always the first weekend in September to raise money for Magpass, the air ambulance service. It's grown really well in the last few years, and I've been taking Peggy to it for 3 years. Getting Peggy there this year was quite the performance. Unfortunately, last weekend we had the exhaust blowout on our way home from Leeds Festival, and so we've had to kind of rush to get exhaust fitted. We've been desperately trying to get that welding that I mentioned in last week's podcast done, but we've had a few kind of letdowns, some problems with postal strikes, meaning that parts didn't get to us quite on time. So all of that culminating in her still waiting on this welding that we've been trying to get done all summer, and unfortunately we were unable to get it done in time for the show. But with the exhaust on, it's meant that we've been able to take her this year, and it's always really nice. And I'll admit I was a little bit stressed about her potentially not making it this year, so I'm really glad that we managed to get her there. So big thanks to my dad, to ESM, and our local garage United Motors for getting the exhaust on there as quickly as possible for me, because with work this week I just wouldn't have had the time. So we tend to go in a little convoy. The show works that if you arrive with people, you get parked next to each other, you can't save spaces and everything. So we tend to meet up at our friend's house, who lives quite the closest to it, and convoy on from there. Last year we had a convoy of 3 cars. This year we managed to double our numbers to 6. At the front of the convoy we had John and Joanne's Triumph TR5. Behind that we had Ebba, Mum and Dad's 1935 Singer Junior. Behind that, Lulu, the Singer Chamois. Behind that, Jamie's Triumph Spitfire. Then it was myself in Peggy, and following on from that was Reese and Dom in their Renault 5. So it was quite a hefty convoy over. Always makes me smile, and I think it was Reese and Dom's first big convoy of cars, and that was really nice to kind of be part of, and they absolutely loved it. We arrived, got ourselves all nicely set up quite near the front because we were really quite early. Arrival for cars is kind of between 9:30 and 11, and then 11 the show kind of officially opens on this local little pavilion. And so we were quite early on, all parked next to each other. It's all pre-booked because over the last few years it's got hugely popular, and the little pavilion grassed area isn't that big for a lot of cars. I think they can fit about 300 on. So they've had to kind of limit numbers with pre-bookings there. So if you're interested in coming along to it next year because you're local, you'll have to keep your eyes peeled for the booking forms. Once we'd got ourselves all set up and established, we went for a little wander round. I've spoken before about how much I love these little local shows for all the unusual things that kind of pop out and come along to them, and this show was no exception. We had a wonderful kind of walk round all of the rows of cars. Some particular favourites for kind of the group of us that were walking round was a 2CV Roadster that I'd never seen anything like it before, and was really quite funky, lovely colours, and it was named Hermione, which was just a fantastic name for a little 2CV Roadster. There was a beautiful Jensen that was catching quite a few people's eyes, a huge, great pink American boat-esque thing. I don't really know what it was, but it was catching quite a lot of people's eyes, and the lady who owned it had put on a fantastic kind of outfit to match the car and the period it was from as well. I think it was 1960. One of our friends, Reese, took a real liking to the VW camper vans. There's always a fantastic display of little camper vans at this show. Really draws them in, and they're always nicely opened and displayed, so you can have a good nosy inside. There's always some lovely little stalls there, so we had a look around those. Unfortunately, I was really hoping that Mint Car Classic were going to have a stall there this year, because they've had a stall there the last few years, and it's where I buy all of my detailer and things for the car, so I'll have to make an online order. But yeah, I was really hoping that I could stock up again this year and save on the postage a little bit. But the stalls that were there were kind of lovely. Castrol Oils was there, and also along kind of the stall area was this huge BMC motor training vehicle, which is something I'd never seen before. I don't know if there's multiple of them or if it's a one-off. Had a really lovely display of all the kind of photos of it through its history, and then the ongoing restoration as well alongside it. And it was all kind of opened up, so you could just see how massive it was inside, and how they were able to conduct all of the training that they did with it inside, which was great to see and really quite unusual as well. It really stood out being at the edge of the field and also being just so monstrously huge. There was a lovely little vintage recovery truck parked next to our fantastic little lineup of cars, and after wandering around the field for quite some time and getting quite a few photos and some footage to share with anyone who's watching this on the YouTube channel, on top of that we kind of had a sit down behind the cars, and it's a great opportunity to kind of catch up with everyone. Steph, my sister, and her boyfriend had come along as well, and kind of hitched a lift in some of the cars, so it was nice to have a chat with them. Mum and Dad were obviously there, John and Joanne, and Reese and Dom, and we had some lovely lunch from the food vans. The event is attached to the pavilion that's got a bar in it, so you can get quite reasonably priced drinks really for a classic car show, which is always a bonus. Now, as you might have seen on my social media, last Thursday, and obviously as you saw on the podcast, was Peggy's registration day, her birthday, depending on what you want to call it. And I like to try and celebrate it. Obviously last year we did the big trip up to the motorist, but with an exhaust hanging off, and a bit more on at work and things this year. We did a small trip to a local fish and chip restaurant earlier in the week in the Spitfire, and met up with Reese and Dom in the Renault 5 to kind of celebrate, but we weren't able to kind of have cake and things with the car, so seemed fitting to celebrate her registration day, an event where she was actually, and get the cake out and share it with everybody who was with us at the show. And it went down a treat, and I do like to kind of buy a cake and a little bit of icing to decorate it up. Perhaps for her 55th registration day next year, I'll actually bake a cake for her to have decorated and make a bit more effort for a nice round special number. There's usually quite a large display display of motorcycles at this particular event, but by the time that we kind of had some lunch and stuff and then went back to have a look around the motorcycles, it was quite a small number of them, but the ones that were there were really lovely, and I took a real liking to one that was made by Polaris, and it was quite a stylish bike with some beautiful shaped exhausts on it that really stood out from the few that were there. It was next to an Indian motorcycle, and I suspect they were kind of together because the Indian motorcycle only had one seat, but it had two helmets on it. So I think they were holding on to the helmet for the motorcycle as well. If you do decide to come to this event in future, it's worth noting that sometimes the food at this event is so delicious that it runs out quite quickly, and my parents and my sister actually went for ice creams not long before we left, and unfortunately Mr. Whippy had run out of Mr. Whippy and quite a few other ice creams. It was much hotter than I think most people expected the show to be today, and was great for the show, but obviously Mr. Whippy did not predict such a seriously beautiful day out at the event. So yeah, the show goes surprisingly quickly for me. I managed to obviously walk around all the cars, chat to my family and friends, take some photos, enjoy myself a bit, and the show was over. It goes very quickly. They have a little raffle towards the end, which raises some money for MagPass and also offers some fantastic prizes. We unfortunately didn't win anything, but hopefully the people that did enjoy what they got. And then yeah, it's time for us to head home as I'm doing now. It was a really lovely show and it's hugely popular, but if you are local and you're interested, I'd highly recommend looking out for it in future, because you do get some really unusual stuff cropping up, and it makes for just a really nice, towards the end of the season, event to go to. We really love it. We love supporting MagPass, who are the chosen charity for the event, and I'm really looking forward to next year already, especially as it lands so close to Peggy's birthday. It makes a nice way to kind of celebrate it there as well. So that not only brings us to the end of the podcast today, but also brings us to the end of Series 3. It's been a busy summer, and it's been really lovely to share so much of it with you guys on the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed what we've shared with you here, and that you're kind of liking, subscribing, following on whatever platform it is that you enjoy listening to the podcast on. It's been great to see the numbers kind of going up this season and people really enjoying what we've been putting out. And it's really nice to hear from you guys in the comments and over on the social media as well about what you guys have been up to with your cars this summer. I've already started work on season 4. We've got some really exciting stuff coming, so I hope you're looking forward to it. We've got some more interviews with other car owners, some more people that I'm seeking out to try and get in a ride with a Morris Minor, and also some just really interesting topics that I want to kind of talk to you guys about, because you know that winter season has to be a little bit more like that than the summer season, because there's just a few less events on, but it should be really exciting for us. So thank you ever so much for your ongoing support. Thank you ever so much for listening, and until you see me again, drive safely and happy motoring.